Let's get right into it. Number 10, the alpha wolf grift. Imagine being a scientist, writing a book that becomes a global sensation, and then spending the next 50 years of your life screaming, "I was wrong," into a void while middle management bros use your mistake to justify being an absolute nightmare in the break room. That is the tragedy of Rudolf Schenkel and David Mech. Back in the mid-20th century, researchers watched wolves in captivity, which is basically the equivalent of studying human social dynamics by watching people in a high-security prison, and noticed they fought for dominance. They coined the term alpha wolf, and 1,000 Sigma male podcasts were born. In reality, when David Mech actually went out and looked at wolves in the wild, he realized that a wolf pack isn't a constant, bloody wrestling match for the top spot. It's a family. The alpha isn't the wolf who bit everyone else into submission, it's just the dad or the mom. They are in charge because they are the parents and they provide the elk meat, much like your parents were in charge because they held the keys to the minivan and the password to the Netflix account. Biologically, wolves are incredibly cooperative. The whole lone wolf or alpha dominance thing is a total fabrication based on how stressed out animals act when you lock them in a cage with strangers. Your boss isn't an alpha, he's just a guy with a LinkedIn premium account who doesn't realize he's LARPing as a confused, captive canine. Basically, our entire cultural understanding of leadership is based on a scientific oopsie that the original author has been trying to delete from the record since 1999. Number 9, the 10% brain capacity scam. If I told you you were only using 10% of your body's potential, you'd probably sign up for whatever expensive biohacking seminar I was hawking. This is the ultimate, "it's not my fault I'm failing" myth. It suggests that deep inside your skull there's a massive, untapped supercomputer just waiting for a magic pill or a Luc Besson movie to unlock it. The reality is much more exhausting. You use virtually every part of your brain every single day. Evolution is a ruthless accountant. Your brain represents about 2% of your body weight but consumes roughly 20% of your energy. From a biological standpoint, keeping 90% of an organ offline while it continues to guzzle calories is the equivalent of leaving your V8 engine idling in the driveway for 40 years just in case you decide to go to the grocery store. It doesn't happen. Functional MRI scans show that even when you're doing something as mind-numbing as scrolling through your ex's Instagram, your entire brain is lighting up like a Christmas tree. There are no dark zones waiting to give you telekinesis. You're already using the whole thing. You're just using it to remember the lyrics to Cotton Eye Joe instead of solving cold fusion. If you think this lie is annoying, just wait until we get to number 6, where we find out that your childhood sugar rushes were actually just a psychological prank played on you by your own parents. Number 8, the Disney-sponsored Lemming Massacre. If you were a kid in the last 50 years, you probably learned that lemmings are the evolutionary equivalent of a delete button. We're told that these fuzzy little rodents periodically get a collective itch for self-destruction and hurl themselves off cliffs into the sea in a bizarre act of mass suicide to prevent overpopulation. It's the ultimate metaphor for following the crowd, used by everyone from high school guidance counselors to disgruntled politicians. There's just one tiny, dark, disturbing problem. Lemmings don't do that. The entire suicidal lemming myth was manufactured by none other than Disney. For the 1958 nature documentary White Wilderness, the filmmakers wanted some dramatic footage of lemming migration. Since the lemmings weren't actually jumping off any cliffs, the crew brought in a bunch of captive lemmings, placed them on a giant snow-covered turntable to film them running, and then, and I'm being completely literal here, launched them off a cliff with a mechanical shove. Nature isn't that cruel. Hollywood is. Lemmings are actually quite sensible creatures that sometimes fall into water while trying to migrate to a new food source, but they aren't trying to end it all. We've been using a literal rodent homicide as a moral lesson for 60 years. Just wait until we get to number 2, where we find out that the most famous psychology experiment in history, the one that proves humans are inherently evil, was actually just a scripted piece of theater. Number 7, the goldfish memory hole. You've heard it 1,000 times. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. It's the ultimate excuse for why your pet fish stares at the plastic castle like he's seeing it for the first time every 3 seconds, forever. It's a comforting thought, right? It means the fish isn't bored out of its mind in a 4-gallon glass box because every lap is a brand new adventure. Except it's a total lie. Goldfish are actually the scholars of the decorative pond world. Researchers have proven that goldfish can remember things for months. They can learn to navigate mazes, they can be trained to ring a bell for food, and they can even recognize their owners, or at least the giant fleshy creature that drops the flakes from the sky. In one study, goldfish were trained to remember that a specific sound meant dinner time, and they still remembered that sound nearly half a year later. That's a longer attention span than most people have when watching a TikTok that's more than 10 seconds long. The 3-second myth probably stuck around because it alleviates the guilt of keeping a complex, social creature in a bowl the size of a cereal dish. Your fish isn't forgetting you, he's just trapped in a watery studio apartment and has decided that acknowledging your presence isn't worth the caloric expenditure. Number 6. The 5 senses lie. Finally, we come to the most basic thing you think you know about being a person, that you have 5 senses. We've been told this since we were toddlers. Sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. It's a neat little list that Aristotle came up with over 2,000 years ago, and because he was a famous Greek guy with a beard, we just never bothered to double-check his math. In reality, neurologists agree you have anywhere between 21 and 33 senses. If you close your eyes and touch your nose, how do you know what your finger is? That's proprioception, the GPS of the limbs that allows your brain to track your body parts without looking at them. If you don't fall over while putting on your pants, you're using equilibrioception, your sense of balance. If you can tell it's cold outside without touching a thermometer, that's thermoception. You also have senses for pain, nociception, thirst, hunger, and even the levels of carbon dioxide in your blood. Limiting yourself to the 5 senses is like saying your phone only has a call button when it's actually a pocket supercomputer that can also order pizza and translate Latin. Your brain is receiving a constant, high-definition stream of data about everything from the tilt of your head to the pressure in your bladder. You are a walking, talking sensor array with capabilities that would make a fighter jet jealous. The 5 senses is just a simplified bedtime story we tell children because explaining the vestibular system to a 4-year-old is a great way to ruin a Saturday. Number 5. The Stanford prison experiment fraud. If you've ever taken Psychology 101, you've heard about the Stanford prison experiment. It's the ultimate humans are secretly monsters story. Philip Zimbardo put a bunch of college students in a basement, flipped a coin to make them either guards or prisoners, and watched as the guards immediately turned into sadistic torturers. The lesson was supposed to be that power corrupts and the system makes us evil. It's been used for decades to explain everything from Abu Ghraib to why your HOA president is such a jerk. The only problem, the whole thing was essentially a scripted community feeder. Detailed archives and interviews with the participants later revealed that the guards didn't just spontaneously become evil, they were actively coached by Zimbardo and his staff to act aggressively. They were told that the success of the study depended on them creating an atmosphere of hopelessness. One of the most famous breakdowns from a prisoner, he later admitted he was faking it because he wanted to leave early so he could study for his GREs. This wasn't a discovery of the dark depths of the human soul, it was a demonstration of what happens when you tell a group of 20-year-olds that they're in a movie and their director wants them to be villains. It's less Lord of the Flies and more method acting gone wrong. The fact that we still cite this as scientific proof of human nature is perhaps the biggest psychological prank of the 20th century. Basically, we aren't all secret monsters, we're just really good at following a script if a guy in a lab coat tells us it's for science. Number 4. The sugar rush scam. You've seen it happen. A 5-year-old inhales a slice of birthday cake and 3 minutes later, they're vibrating at a frequency that could shatter glass, sprinting around the living room like a pinball with a vendetta. We call it a sugar rush, and parents have been using it as a legal defense for their children's behavior since the invention of high fructose corn syrup. We treat sugar like biological nitro, assuming that a single gummy bear will turn a toddler into a caffeinated squirrel. The problem is, biologically speaking, the sugar rush doesn't exist. Scientists have performed double-blind studies where they give one group of kids sugar and another group an artificial sweetener. The results? There's absolutely zero difference in behavior. In fact, in some studies, parents were told their kids had been given sugar when they actually hadn't, and those parents still reported that their kids were acting hyperactive. Hyperactivity at parties isn't caused by the glucose, it's caused by the fact that the kids are at a freaking party. They're surrounded by friends, loud music, balloons, and the general chaos of being 5. Blaming the sugar for a kid's meltdown is like blaming the gasoline for a car's speed while the driver is actively flooring the pedal. Your brain is just looking for a scapegoat for why your child is currently trying to parkour off the sofa, and sucrose is a much more comforting answer than I am raising a tiny agent of chaos. Number 3. The blue blood delusion. Take a quick look at the inside of your wrist. See those little cerulean rivers branching out toward your palm? For decades, well-meaning but utterly wrong biology teachers have told us that blood is blue when it's inside your body because it hasn't been touched by oxygen yet. The idea is that your blood is like some kind of moody Gothic ink that only turns bright red the second you scrape your knee and expose it to the air. It's a cool story that makes your circulatory system sound like a magical neon light show, but your body is not a mood ring. The truth is much more boring. Your blood is always red. When it's full of oxygen, it's a bright cherry red. When it's heading back to the lungs for a refill, it's a deep, dark maroon. It never, under any circumstances, turns the color of a Powerade. The reason your veins look blue is thanks to the way light interacts with your skin. This is basically your body playing a prank on your eyes using physics. Blue light has a shorter wavelength and doesn't penetrate as deeply into your tissue as red light does. So, the blue light hits your veins and bounces back to your eyeballs before it can get absorbed, while the red light gets swallowed up by your skin. Your veins are essentially an optical illusion. If you actually had blue blood, you'd probably be a horseshoe crab, which, to be fair, have much cooler immune systems than you do. But unless you're a crustacean or a very confused Vulcan, you are filled with red goop from head to toe. Your brain just loves to simplify things into blue is cold or deoxygenated, and red is hot or oxygenated, even when the physics of your own forearm are telling you a lie. Number 2. Phantom vibration syndrome. You're standing in line at the grocery store when you feel it, that unmistakable buzzy twitch against your thigh. Your phone is ringing. You reach into your pocket, pull out the slab of glass and metal, and nothing. No notifications, no missed calls, not even a spam text about your car's extended warranty. You check again, convinced the screen is just lagging, but the truth is, your phone didn't move. You just hallucinated a vibration. This isn't just you being phone-obsessed. It's a documented psychological phenomenon called phantom vibration syndrome, and it's a sign that your brain has officially been hijacked by your hardware. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for signals. Usually, it's looking for things like, is there a spider on me? Or, is my shirt itchy? But because you are so conditioned to respond to your phone, your brain has recategorized the feeling of your clothes rubbing against your skin or a slight muscle twitch as an incoming call. Your brain is essentially a paranoid secretary who thinks every slight breeze is a high-priority memo. You've trained your somatosensory cortex to be so hyper-vigilant that it's now gaslighting you. It's the ultimate modern tragedy. Your body is literally inventing fake friends just to give you something to do with your hands. Basically, your brain is so bored with reality that it started making up its own haptic feedback. Number 1. The tongue map conspiracy. Cast your mind back to third grade science. You probably saw a diagram of a human tongue divided into neat, colorful little zones. Sweet in the front, salty on the sides, bitter in the back, and sour somewhere else. Your teacher might have even had you do a tasting lab where you dropped lemon juice on different parts of your tongue to prove it. And because the human brain is a master of placebo, you probably sat there nodding and thinking, wow, I really can't taste this sugar on the side of my tongue. Well, congratulations, you were part of a mass hallucination. The tongue map is a total fabrication born from a 1901 paper by a German scientist named David Hannig. He was just measuring the sensitivity thresholds of different areas, but a Harvard psychologist later misinterpreted the data and drew a map that looked official enough for textbooks to copy-paste for the next century. In reality, your tongue is a democracy. Every single taste bud, regardless of its zip code, has receptors for every type of flavor. You have taste receptors on the roof of your mouth and even in your throat. Your tongue doesn't have zones. It's just a giant muscle covered in tiny sensors that are all equally capable of telling your brain that you just ate a spoonful of dirt. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.